Hey everybody, welcome back to the Court of Random Opinion. My name is Lauren Neidigh. I'm not tired. You're tired. Sorry. After reading all this, I wanted to try my own hand at gaslighting, and well, I guess it's not working. Okay, so we did this a little backwards. This filing came out at pretty close to 1 a.m. my time. Maybe it was even just a little before midnight, and I didn't check it until then. But um, we went over this, like we skimmed through it last night, but we're going to give it a little bit of a closer look this morning. So if you just want the cliff notes and my kind of clown jokes, then you can look at last night's stream, and it'll give you that. But this is not a very long filing. We are going to read through it a little more carefully this morning. Also want to say before we get started on that, the video where you guys have sent in your voice clips that I was going to put out this morning, I don't want it to be like overshadowed by one of these streams with like a new filing. So what I'm gonna do is I think I'm gonna put it out tonight instead. I did finish editing it though. So also today is my mom's birthday, so it's gonna be a busy day. But hopefully nothing else too much will come up today. We'll see. Because I just want to make sure that I get that out there at a time when I'm not just kind of sticking it out there as an afterthought. You know what I mean? Like I don't want it to be, it's like an important thing that people went and shared their experiences for that. So I want to make sure that it gets kind of its own moment. Let me put it that way. I don't want it to get stuck in between the 4,000 streams a day I do on these court filings. So it'll be out soon. All right. Let me pull this up. This is another Stephanie Jones filing. Somebody asked me right before we started this stream, is there anything she does that isn't dramatic? And I said, yes, the table of contents. But then I looked a little closer at the table of contents and I realized that wasn't true either. I know that this is just how they format it, but I can't help but read that and think of people like screaming it. You know what I mean? It's like text yelling when you're yelling at someone in a text message. But yeah. Anyways, this is the third-party defendant JonesWorks LLC's memorandum of law in support of its motion to dismiss Jennifer Abel's third-party complaint seeking indemnification. So this isn't like Stephanie Jones herself, it's JonesWorks LLC, but that's Stephanie Jones. Okay. Anyways, they were the ones who employed Jen Abel. That's how all this went down. They took the phone when she was leaving the job or terminated. It's a little, the sequence of events of her leaving that place was pretty interesting. I guess you could say she was let go, but kind of not because she was already leaving, you know? But we'll see. Okay. Give me 1 second here, guys. Okay, we're good to go now. Preliminary statement. Jennifer Abel went rogue. She ruthlessly pursued her own career advancement by leading an aggressive smear campaign and pinning it on her employer, JonesWorks, while contemporaneously seeking to take down her employer by spearheading a Business Insider hit piece against the company and CEO, Stephanie Jones, stealing confidential documents, poaching clients, and seeking to ruin Jones' decades-built reputation, all before the dust had time to settle. Her duplicitous plan, and I know people don't like when I say duplicitous because somebody pointed it out last night. It's supposed to be duplicitous. No, I say duplicitous, and that's where we're going with. Her duplicitous plan nearly succeeded until JonesWorks caught Abel red-handed, executing her treasonous plan by stealing confidential company files on her way out the door. JonesWorks promptly terminated her for her theft, disloyalty, and replete contractual violations, now having been unmasked as the puppeteer behind this smear campaign and facing lawsuits that seek to hold her accountable for her own actions. Actions she intentionally hid from JonesWorks and engaged in well outside the purview of her employment. Abel brazenly seeks indemnification from the employer she betrayed and sought to ruin. Abel's audacious play to evade responsibility fails as a matter of law for multiple reasons and should be rejected out of hand. First, Abel entered into a valid and enforceable contract that mandated the application of New York law to her employment and all disputes relating to the performance of her duties to JonesWorks, a New York company. She could not now renege on that agreement. while retaining the benefits she reaped from it, and seek indemnification under a California statute that is plainly inapplicable. Her California statutory indemnification claim should be dismissed. Second, Abel cannot seek indemnification where she was acting in her own interests, which she actively hid from and were opposed to those of Jonesworks. Abel's pleadings make clear that was precisely what she was doing. Abel admits that, starting weeks before she left Jonesworks as early as July 29, 2024, and continuing through and past August 9th, 2024, the exact time she was engaging in the conduct for which she now seeks indemnification, she was communicating with co-conspirator Melissa Nathan about their duplicitous scheme for Abel to leave Jonesworks, poach its clients, and profit at Jonesworks' expense. Defendant Jennifer Abel's answer to complaint, counterclaims, and jury trial demand. Abel answered to Jones, and Abel counterclaims. And they're citing that docket number 36, Jones v. Abel. And that's where these texts come from. So if you are looking at this and you pull up the other filing that they're citing and you go to the paragraph number here, that's where you can see like exactly what they're pointing to. Okay. Let me zoom in on this a little bit. It is a little hard to read these text messages. So, all right. Okay, so here's the text. It's from Melissa Nathan to Jennifer Abel. It says, I know, and once you're gone, we will be on accounts together and make really good money and be happy. Let's just keep steering it that way. Keep it steering that way. And you take this fucking client and never talk to her again, I swear to God. So obviously they're going back and forth about Stephanie Jones. I'm not convinced that these two text messages right here actually paint exactly the picture that they are trying to paint. I think that's very vague, and they could be really referring to anything. But okay. All right. Abel admits that while employed at Jonesworks and during the period for which she seeks indemnification, she was boasting to Nathan about her overt hostility to Jonesworks. I hate when they say they admit that, and then I'm like, that's obviously not what she was saying, first of all. Second, again, these texts are not specific enough to kind of convince me that they're making the point they're trying to make. But it says, we are going to war. It's a message from Jennifer Abel to Melissa Nathan. We are going to war. I feel so alive. Ha, 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 ha. And that's when I said last night, I was like, this filing makes me feel like it was written by whoever came up with Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy in the SpongeBob, TV show, because it's like, there was the one, they're like way older, and one of them keeps going evil, and that's what this filing makes me think. Like, I'm just like, I can't read this and think of anything else except for Stephanie Jones being Mermaid Man chasing Jennifer Abel with a stick or something. Abel admits she intended to shake down Jonesworks on her way out. And then this is another text from Jen Abel to Melissa Nathan. It says, by the way, I'm having my offboarding this morning with our chief of staff, a joke, because Steph won't face me, and you should see the list I made of things to bring up. Holding them hostage. It's wild. Okay. Let me just make sure this is the same. Yeah, I mean, and these texts did come back to back in the same minute. So it's not like we're picking from different conversations. So to be fair, whatever they're referring to here, this is all like, they didn't just like cherry pick stuff here, I guess. But obviously there's a lot of context missing, but I'm just saying this was the sequence of the conversation. She said, I'm having my offboarding, holding them hostage. It's wild. Maybe that was a joke. Probably, honestly. Why would you write something like that if it wasn't a joke? I mean, we all know because of the text they keep harping on from these publicists, like what they can and can't put in writing. So obviously, like, I don't think that she would seriously put that in writing. You know what I mean? Because she knows what she can't do on the phone. I don't know. But some of this stuff is a little questionable judgment, but, whatever. Abel admits that in parallel with the actions for which she now seeks indemnification, she and Nathan were encouraging Wayfair and Baldoni to breach their contract with Jonesworks so they could steal them as clients. This is from Melissa to Jen. Again, she used these texts on the previous page, so I'm not sure why they're putting it here again, but all right. Let's keep it steering that way. All right. And then Melissa says, I'm going to step out of line before I go to bed and tell you Jen is amazing. And she's relaying here a text that she sent, I think, to Justin, but they don't provide that context. So this just kind of looks dumb and like standalone. It says, I'm going to step out of line before I go to bed and tell you Jen is amazing. She's so loyal. She loves you so much. And you have to go with her. And he was like, oh my God, of course I'm going with her. Don't kill me. Okay, bye. So I guess like Jen obviously didn't ask her to do that. Melissa's just saying, this is what I said. Okay. And then Jennifer says, ha ha ha, oh my God, I love you. Which later is a little awkward because, Stephanie Jones likes to cause problems in these documents. It's like a little bit of a middle school drama reading. Later we'll see where Stephanie Jones has texts of Jennifer Abel just kind of like maybe shit talking Melissa Nathan a little bit, but whatever. All right. Abel admits that throughout this period, she facilitated and regularly communicated with a Business Insider reporter, including through at least 4 phone calls, one more than 27 minutes long, and numerous text messages with the reporter, and text messages coordinating the reporter's outreach to others to actively undermine Jones's reputation and JonesWorks business through a hit piece about Jones and JonesWorks. All right. So here's the text that goes with it. And I want to talk about why I don't think this is, again, sufficient. It says, from Melissa Nathan to Jennifer Abel, Stephanie, are you aware there's a kill story dropping this week on you? And if you hadn't have blown us up, we would not have been in such a bad place. And that is, again, taken out of context here. So we don't really know if those phone calls that they're alleging were about, the Stephanie Jones article. We don't actually know if they were about what she's saying they're about. And then that text there's really no reason to like point to this and be like, this definitely proves what they're saying right here, because they could just be like kind of talking about how frustrated she is that somebody contacted her about, the kill story or whatever, and she couldn't do anything about it. And just because she took a phone call from someone at that publication doesn't mean she did what they're alleging here. It doesn't necessarily mean she didn't, of course, but you have to prove that, right? Okay. Abel admits that the reporter thanked her for her help with the story. And then here is a text message from Katie Warren to Jennifer Abel. It says, story is up. Thanks again for your help. Once again, I don't know, we don't know what she said to her. I'm sure they're going to ask. I'm sure they're going to ask Katie Warren what they talked about. But if there was a 27-minute phone call, they're going to have to prove that they were talking about, Jen was giving her help with writing that. Anyways, Abel admits that as she was working at JonesWorks, supposedly in the interest of its then client Baldoni, she was simultaneously trashing him behind his back and crediting the very rumors she was working to suppress. Defendant Jennifer Abel's answer to First Amendment complaints, and they're citing these text messages. It's so cringe, and this is where they're talking about Justin, which is unfortunate. And they're redacting the name in the text messages here from the receiving end. So it's kind of odd. I've been told by someone, and I can't remember who it was, that the redacted name here is Stephanie Jones, which would be ridiculous. So I don't know. I can't recall if that's who that is for sure. So I'll have to look into that again. Jen Abel says, it's so cringy, his face. And then the redacted person here says, Blake was probably grossed out too, to which Jennifer Abel says, yeah, and filed a cease and desist. And then we have here, the next day, Jennifer Abel says, I can't stand him. He's so pompous. A men's retreat during release. Is he crazy? And being off the grid for the summer because he's just so overworked. Like, calm down. You're not that important and no one gives a shit how hard your life is. She also says, he may fire us because even if we put together an amazing campaign, it's not going to change the fact that he's so unlikable and unrealistic as a leading man. There's no chemistry with him and Blake. You and I both know that she will be resistant to promote this movie, and press will be reluctant to do anything with Justin without Blake being a part of it. So those are my thoughts. So that must suck to read if you're the person they're talking about. So that's ouch, which is why I hate these texts so much. But everybody does vent. Yes, of course. It's just unfortunate if you vent on the phone that is owned by Stephanie Jones' company, even if it is attached to your phone number. We're running some risks here that I think were unnecessary, but I'm not a fan of the whole attaching your work and personal phones. But in hindsight, it's easy for me to say that, right? Because I don't know the ins and outs of being a publicist either. So I'm sure there's reasons there are benefits to that I just don't know. And so, yeah. Okay. To be fair, if someone was to read text between me and my bestie about my former boss, and this is a commenter if you're just listening, we'd both go straight to jail. These texts are so mild in tone. What did you do? That's the moral of the story that I'm taking away here. I know that you're trying to make a point, but what I'm thinking is, what did you do? What did you say? All right. Anyways. Redondo Beach, member for 2 months. Thank you for that. A magical middle of the night live. I'm on my way to IHOP. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was last night. Helene, thank you for the $20. You're up early, Lauren. It's late here in New Zealand. Here's some money. Thank you. Thanks for all you do. Thank you, Helene. Appreciate it. All right, let's get back into it. Abel also admits that during this time, Nathan was also not safe from Abel's trash talk, labeling her an expletive, even as she worked with her to harm and steal from Jones and Jones Works. And then they're signing some text here, and there's absolutely no fucking reason to put these in here other than to be a bitch. So, like, in what way is Jen Abel talking shit about Melissa Nathan behind her back relevant to your claims? Like, I don't understand. Like, can anybody explain that? Because there's really no reason to put this out there other than to fuck with her at this point. I mean, if you're looking at this, it's like, why would you even include these unless you were just trying to, like, out her talking bad about her friend and cause personal problems? So that's terrible. All right. Anyways, Redacted says to Jennifer Abel, Melissa Nathan kind of talks out both sides of her mouth. And then Jennifer Abel says, you think? And then Jennifer Abel also says, she's a piece of shit. I honestly used to like her, and now I see her for how she really is. Oh, man. These guys are going to have problems cleaning up after these text messages. It sucks. Hopefully they can work it out, though. And Abel admits that when Jonesworks finally discovered her subterfuge, self-serving thievery, and duplicity, and limited her access to its electronic systems, she boasted about evading the company's efforts to stop her theft. And this is where I'm like, this doesn't really look good for you at all. Jennifer Abel says to Alicia Jessup, and I'm not sure who Alicia is. I'm assuming she's a current employee, or at least at the time, a current employee of Jonesworks. It says, yes, pretty much. I have my way around that shit because I have like hundreds of different emails for each domain that I own, so she can suck it. Saying she can suck it about your crazy boss who's going to access your text messages is, I mean, I'm for it, but then don't have all shocked Pikachu face when she blows up about it, you know? Abel's claim that she's entitled to indemnification from the employer she was actively betraying is diabolically illogical, legally deficient, and must be dismissed. Third, Abel cannot plausibly plead that she was acting in the scope of her employment when she was actively refusing to follow Jonesworks' instructions and hiding her activity from the CEO. Indeed, Abel proudly pleads that she advised Wayfarer to hire Nathan, knowing full well that Jones opposed this recommendation, that Abel objected to Jones inserting herself into the mix of working on behalf of Wayfarer in early August 2024, and that Wayfarer instructed Jones to cease all activities on behalf of Wayfarer and Baldoni. Okay, so the client didn't want you. Like, they didn't want to work with you. They didn't want you involved in their business. Obviously, you did something weird. So why make that a flex? Like, okay. She even has the audacity to claim that she was working in the scope of her employment at Jonesworks in the same breath as attacking Jones, Well, those things aren't mutually exclusive, are they? Unless you're saying JonesWorks is Stephanie Jones, which, I mean, it's kind of, at this point, it kind of seems like they're morphed together to me. But because I haven't heard anything about anyone at JonesWorks other than Stephanie Jones, I don't think, except for maybe that security guard in the meeting that one time. All right. For refusing to be sidelined. But text Abel admits to sending and receiving confirm that she and Nathan did sideline Jones and JonesWorks, including when those two co-conspirators ironically commiserated about the misogynistic nature of their vile campaign against Jones and Lively, and unbelievably attempted to blame Lively for their ruthless campaign. This is such a huge stretch. Like, that is a huge stretch, saying all that stuff right there. Like, that's just... And if you look at these text messages, they're very vague. And then Stephanie Jones and Blake Lively have both used these texts in their complaint to sort of illustrate this is how, see, this is, they're talking about the campaign against me, the smear campaign against me, or how people are hating on me or whatever. And I'm like, okay, so which one of you was it, first of all? And then second, this doesn't actually prove any of what was in that above paragraph. It's very vague. It says, from Melissa to Jennifer, it's actually sad because it just shows you how people really want to hate on women. And then Jennifer Abel says, I know it's sad, but then, like, don't be a cunt. And she beat me to the punch there, because I have not used that word yet today. It is only 8:42 a.m. But, like, none of that actually proves any of this at all whatsoever. It's like they're just showing these text messages that kind of paint them in a bad light and make it look like they're unreasonable, mean girls. But it doesn't actually have anything to do with what they're saying here. Okay. Abel's assertion that JonesWorks, whom she is suing in related litigation in this court, must now fund her defense in litigation that seeks to call her to account for her misconduct is beyond the pale. Her indemnification claims fail as a matter of law and should be dismissed. Okay. So she's saying they should have to pay for her defense here, and they're saying, fuck that, basically. All right. I'd love to see Stephanie's face when she said she can suck it. Yeah. All right. Background 1, Abel joins JonesWorks, and we've seen this before, so I'm going to skim through it. We know what JonesWorks is. In July 2020, they hired Abel. In November 2021, they executed a new employment agreement. Abel was granted the title Vice President Talent, though the company began referring to her as partner and was provided with compensation tied to the company's performance. Okay. Under the 2021 employment agreement, Abel agreed she would not use any JonesWorks proprietary information for any purpose other than benefiting the company, that she would not compete with JonesWorks for business during her employment or for a period of 6 months after her departure, that she would not solicit any business from JonesWorks clients, and that she would not solicit any JonesWorks employees to depart the company. Okay. So people have told me that California law, it won't even recognize like non-competes or something like that. I don't know how true that is. I'm sure Omar can tell us because he practices out in California. That is my alarm to wake up for work this morning. Sorry. Anyways, Omar works out in California, so I'll have to ask him about that. I don't know if that's true or not. But anyways, if it is true and they're working under California law here, then this whole thing is stupid. All right. Abel also expressly agreed that she owed JonesWorks a fiduciary duty of loyalty, fidelity, and allegiance to act at all times in the best interests of company and to do no act which might injure the business interests or reputations of the company. Okay. And if you guys can hear the lawn people out there, I'm sorry. It's annoying. The 2021 employment agreement provided that this agreement and the performance of the parties' obligations hereunder will be governed by and construed in accordance with the laws of the state of New York, without giving effect to any choice of law principles. So it sounds like, again, we're going to go back and forth between, is this California law? Is it New York law? And it sounds like they're going to try to say it's under New York law because JonesWorks is a a New York company, but okay. Keep in mind, though, that Abel worked at the California office. So. Hey, Zach. Oh my God, she sleeps till 8:45. So lucky. Well, two things, millennial mom. Two things, millennial mom. Number one, I was streaming until almost 2 a.m. last night. And second, does it look like I slept until 8:45 a.m.? Because I've been on here for 25 minutes already. But no, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Sometimes, every now and then, I'll take the morning off and I'll sleep in until 8:45. Yeah, but today is not one of those days. I'm just picking on you though. We're fine. Okay. Abel runs and again they're shouting. Should I shout the shouting parts? I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna move the microphone away so I'm not like spitting at you. Abel runs an unsanctioned shadow campaign to smear Lively and attack and steal from Jones Works. Good morning. Okay. Shortly after joining Jones Works, Abel began working on the Baldoni and Wayfarer accounts, for which Jones Works entrusted Abel to be the point person. Okay. Although Abel was the person with day-to-day responsibility for these relationships, Jones Works, primarily through Jones, supervised and directed her work until Abel went rogue. Okay. In the summer of 2024, rumors swirled regarding Baldoni's misconduct on the set of It Ends With Us, particularly towards Baldoni's co-star Blake Lively. News outlets began publishing stories about the It Ends With Us cast unfollowing Baldoni on social media, and cast members not appearing with Baldoni at press junkets and promotional events. As the noise surrounding Baldoni's behavior increased, he turned to Abel. Abel, in turn, recommended Wayfarer retain Melissa Nathan to provide crisis PR services. Jones Works, through Jones, expressly objected to the retention of Nathan and conveyed to Abel that she should not make that recommendation, but in defiance, Abel did so anyway, and Wayfarer ultimately retained Nathan. Sorry. I don't know why she was so against that, but okay. If you want to have a petty squabble over that, sure. Together, Abel and Nathan developed and executed, unbeknownst to Jones Works, a smear campaign to bury and destroy Lively. Again, you have to prove that. And what are you talking about? This strategy was in part outlined in a scenario planning document that Abel admits was circulated by Nathan to Baldoni. And we've seen that document, and it doesn't say what they think it's saying here. Well, they probably know what it's saying, but it doesn't say what they're trying to make it say here. Let's put it that way. By her silence in her answer/counterclaims, Abel implicitly acknowledges that it was never sent to or approved by Jones. Well, the client asked Jones to stay out of their shit because she was kind of crazy town. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Among other strategies, the document recommended discrediting Lively's on-set experience with Baldoni and the harassment she faced at his hands by pejoratively casting her in the press as someone who has weaponized feminism for her own benefit. Well, first of all, where's the lie? And second, that's not what that said. Oh my God. Holy crap, you're just making shit up. The strategy document, however, was mild compared to the actual gravamen of the campaign. As Abel admits, she discussed the plan with Nathan to bury and destroy Lively. Abel also admits implicitly by her silence that she never discussed this with Jones or obtained Jones' approval. Well, because it didn't happen, dude. That's not how it happened. That's not exactly what was going on there. So why would you get approval for something that doesn't exist? Abel and Nathan's smear campaign also included exploiting domestic violence survivor content. You're joking, right? You're joking. We have some elitist asshole exploiting a law in California meant to protect victims, and you want to talk about someone else exploiting survivor content? Go fuck yourself. All right. Covering up Baldoni's on-set misconduct and planting negative new articles and social media content about Lively. Abel did all of this without the knowledge of Jones Works and an express and known defiance of company instruction, including by Jones. For example, JonesWorks instructed Abel not to recommend that Wayfair hire Nathan. We already said that. So you need to get over that. Hang on. I wanted to turn off my second alarm before it went off. Okay. Abel's disloyalty to JonesWorks and corresponding fidelity to her and Nathan's takedown crusade ultimately led to Wayfair wholly rejecting and excluding Jones, as they instructed Jones to cease all activities on behalf of Wayfair and Baldoni, and instead went it alone with Abel and the rogue employee. Or no, Abel, the rogue employee, my bad. Simultaneously, Abel was actively planning to leave JonesWorks and start her own business to compete with JonesWorks, using their proprietary information and strategies and with JonesWorks clients. While still employed by and collecting a paycheck from JonesWorks, Abel set about pillaging the pillaging. God, now we're moving into Dave the Barbarian territory. All right. I don't know if anybody even knows what I'm talking about when I make these old cartoon references, but Abel set about pillaging the company for anything she could take on her way out the door. On July 19th, despite still being a JonesWorks employee, Abel filed articles of organization for her new company, RWA Communications. They're just citing Abel answer to Jones. She also stole JonesWorks' confidential documents and clients, both an express violation of her contract and her obligations as an employee. Okay. Abel and co-conspirator Nathan, at the exact time they were running their unsanctioned smear campaign, were conniving a parallel takedown to steal clients from JonesWorks to make really good money and be happy. Dude, again, that's not what that text was really saying. You can kind of tell. But just for reference, we're on the bottom of page 10 here. So let's go back to that text. It was at the very beginning. That text said, I know, and once you're gone, we'll be on accounts together and make really good money and be happy. Okay. So it's kind of like saying, well, so her friend's having a hard time. She's trying to get out of this work environment that she doesn't like, and she wants to go make it on her own or whatever. And so Melissa is saying to her, once you're gone, we'll work together, we'll make good money, and we'll be happy. And then Stephanie Jones is taking that to mean a very specific thing here. Let's see. Just want to highlight that. At the exact time they were running their unsanctioned smear campaign, they were conniving a parallel takedown to steal clients from JonesWorks to make really good money and be happy. Well, if you're going to use that text message to make that point, you should at least also show context to where they're saying, we're going to take her clients and be really happy. And we're going to take her down. You know what I mean? Not just you're going to get out of that toxic environment and we're going to work together and we're going to do well and we're going to be really happy. That's two different scenarios here. So we're making some really dramatic claims out of vague text messages, which is fine if you're having a fight on Twitter, but this is a court of law. So, okay. On August 9th, Nathan further confirmed their plan, texting Abel they would steal this fucking client and never talk to Jones again, I swear to God. Okay, so that would have been a good thing to put with that other text message. But where is it? That actually does sound familiar. She might have put that in here. But Abel herself boasted to Nathan that she was going to war with JonesWorks more than a week before her employment ended. You know what I can do here? Hang on. Yeah, no. So I searched the document for this, and there's no text message saying that in here. I'm not saying there isn't one. I'm just saying they didn't put it here. And I feel like that was pretty relevant, so they probably should have. Okay. Yeah, just double checking. Oh, here it is. You take this fucking client and never talk to her again, I swear to God. Okay, but again, that's not the same as saying you're going to steal her client, sorry, let me move back to where we were. We're going to steal this client, and we're going to ruin her life and her business and just run away and exploit her, basically. So, not the same thing, in my opinion. sequence of the conversation. Whoops, that is me. Okay. Okay. 2 days before her termination, Abel wrote, "OMG, love you," in response to Nathan persuading Wayfair to breach its contract with Jonesworks and hire Abel. Oh my God. Again, that's going to come down to, I think, the laws and whether or not it was allowed for them to like go with Abel, whether or not Stephanie Jones actually breached any of their contract, which would then allow them to do that. So I don't know how that's going to turn out. But I think it's just funny that she's writing, "Oh my God, love you," in here like that was such an offense. Abel further admits that she communicated regularly with Business Insider, the reporter who was writing the kill story. I don't know if that's exactly what she had admitted, you know what I mean? But sure. While Abel was still employed by Jonesworks. Okay. She further arranged to remove from the story a letter of support for Jonesworks from Baldoni and coordinated others' negative participation in the article. Okay, so here is where they were complaining about the conversation she has. She arranged to remove from the story a letter of support from Jonesworks from Baldoni. Is it possible she was just trying to keep the client out of the fucking mess that was about to, follow your name? I'm just saying. When the reporter published the story, she wrote to Abel just moments later, thanking her for her help with the story. Abel did this to undermine Jones' business so she could unfairly take her clients and compete with her after she left. Abel even admits to writing to a colleague, again while employed by Jonesworks, that even though Jonesworks had detected her theft of documents and disabled her network access, "I have my way around that shit so she can suck it." So that's my favorite quote. On August 21st, On August 21st, Jonesworks terminated Abel after discovering Abel's theft of confidential Jonesworks documents. Wayfair soon followed Abel, purporting to terminate its contract and hiring Abel's new company. Okay. And this is where it gets into like the case stuff, the case citations and all that. So this is where we're going to start to skim stuff. I just wanted to look at that beginning part a little more closely. Give me 1 second here. No, JA did take one of SJ clients' Wayfair, but that's absolutely normal in the publisher space. Yeah. Now, I'm not trying to say that they didn't go with her. Of course they did. I mean, obviously she took them, but it's more like, is that allowed? You know what I mean? Because she's basically saying that she's committed some grave offense here, whereas I don't know if I necessarily believe that that's the case. So we'll see. Oh, God, we're back to a yelling part. It's too early for this shit. Abel seeks indemnification from Jonesworks for the smear campaign she carried out in pursuit of her own interests and without Jonesworks' knowledge. All right. How was that? Imagine if I had left myself on mute. I probably should have. Okay. There's nothing here that's really too pertinent. Except for this. Neither Jones nor Jonesworks is named as a defendant in Lively's action. No, they were a co-conspirator. All right. Legal standard. A Rule 12b6 motion challenges the sufficiency of the complaint. To survive a motion to dismiss, a complaint must allege facts which, when taken as true, contain sufficient matter to state a claim of relief that's plausible on its face. And we've read that a lot of times in the last couple of weeks. So let's move on. I'm not screaming again. I'm sorry. I know this is the format in all caps, but since we're reading petty text messages, my brain is just in the mode of all caps is yelling. All right. Argument. Abel cannot invoke California's Labor Code Section 2802 when she expressly agreed that New York law governs the parties' employment relationship. So this is going to be yet another scenario where we're arguing about which states' laws apply. Abel cannot invoke California's statutory indemnification because she expressly agreed that New York law would govern the terms of her employment and performance of her duties for Jonesworks. necessarily including whether her alleged misconduct fell within the scope of those duties, which it did not, and whether she is entitled to indemnification for her alleged performance of those duties, which she is not. Having agreed to those ground rules for her relationship with Jonesworks, Abel cannot now invoke a statute she agreed would not apply. Okay. A, the New York choice of law clause is valid and enforceable. Okay. Here, the New York choice of law clause in Abel's employment agreement is valid and enforceable, as New York has plentiful contacts with Abel's employment and this dispute. As Abel alleges, Jonesworks is a well-known New York-based public relations firm that systemically and continuously conducts and solicits business within New York and has availed itself of the privileges of conducting business in the state of New York. And again, I don't know if it makes a difference, but she was working at their California office, so. Okay. Abel's conduct and allegations demonstrate amply sufficient New York contacts to enforce her contractual choice of law clause. Okay. As this court has recognized, and as New York's overriding deference to contractual choice of law clauses underscores, where more than one jurisdiction might have an interest in the dispute, the party's freedom to choose the governing law should be honored and that contractual choice upheld. With regard to the standards limiting principle, Abel does not allege, nor could she, that the 2021 employment agreement was the product of any fraud. And a litigant cannot credibly claim that the application of New York law by a New York court would violate New York's public policy. Okay. Because New York law has sufficient contacts with the transaction and there is no fraud or violation of public policy in its application here, no further choice of law analysis is required. B, the application of the choice of law clause forecloses Abel's California statutory indemnification claim. Abel's self-serving allegations doom her claim. Doom. Okay. Again, I'm thinking of the villain from Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. So when I read some of these words, by alleging that she engaged in her pattern of misconduct as part of her employment at Jonesworks, Abel's indemnification claims fall within the 2021 agreement, which broadly covers not only the contract itself, but also the performance of the party's obligations. Abel cannot rely on the California statute where she wrongly claims she acted within the scope of her employment, which she in turn agreed would be governed by New York law. Her first cause of action should be dismissed. Okay. Here, Abel's claim for indemnification relates directly to the performance of her contractual obligations to Jonesworks. It thus sounds in contract and is covered by the broad contractual choice of law clause. Indeed, the question of whether the allegations Lively has made against Abel fall within the scope of her employment by Jonesworks and her contractual obligations are at the heart of Abel's claim. The California statute Abel seeks to invoke crystallizes this. It applies by its own terms only to losses incurred by the employee in direct consequence of the discharge of his or her duties, or of his or her obedience to the directions of the employer. Abel herself alleges that she was named as a defendant in plaintiff's pleadings solely because of and in direct consequence of Abel's discharge of her duties to Jonesworks. Although this allegation is transparently implausible, as detailed below, the claims against Abel and her indemnification claim, thus paradigmatically, I've never seen that word before, paradigmatically relate to the performance of her contractual obligations to Jonesworks and are covered by New York choice of law clause. For this reason, Abel's claim for indemnification stands in stark contrast to cases in which New York courts and courts of the Second Circuit have ruled that certain non-contractual claims fall outside the scope of even narrower contractual choice of law clauses. Okay. Because New York law governs Abel's performance of her duties to Jonesworks and any indemnification she may be entitled to as a result of those duties, the California Labor Code does not apply and her first cause of action should be dismissed. Okay, we're at 5, and it's again in all caps, and I'm just done yelling. We're done yelling. Abel is not entitled to common law indemnification. Okay. Abel's claim for common law indemnification also fails because 1, she agreed to a specifically scoped contractual indemnification clause that she cannot now abjugate in favor of more generous common law indemnification. And 2, in any event, her allegations make clear that she was not acting within the scope of her employment when she single-handedly committed the misconduct for which Lively seeks redress here. Okay, sure. A. Abel's agreement to specific contractual indemnification supersedes common law indemnification. We're going to skim over this. Okay. While this is more than ample basis to reject Abel's claims, there is yet more. The language of the agreement that she willfully entered carves out indemnification for liabilities caused by employee or resulting from a breach of this agreement by employee. Okay. This is precisely what Abel now seeks, indemnification for liabilities caused by her unsanctioned actions, detailed in Lively's amended complaint. Notwithstanding Abel's apparent newfound regret over agreeing to a contractual indemnification clause, she must now lie on the bed she made, and her common law indemnification claim should be dismissed. B. Abel is not entitled to indemnification for actions taken when she went rogue and acted in service of her personal interests in direct defiance of Jonesworks' instructions. Okay. Even if Abel were entitled to seek common law indemnification, her claim should be dismissed. Under New York law, employer liability for the acts of its employees derives from the doctrine of respondeat superior. Okay. 1. Abel was acting in pursuit of her own interests, not Jonesworks. Okay, that's pretty. We've kind of gone over that, so I'm going to skim over that. Because Abel acted with the goal of benefiting herself and her new venture, far from the benefit of, and in fact directly against Jonesworks' instructions and strategy, she cannot take refuge behind common law indemnification and must bear personal responsibility for her actions. Okay. The sequence of events here in Abel's subterfuge bring her true motivations for her actions into stark relief, beginning at least as early as July 2024. Abel had one foot out the door at Jonesworks, having already registered a competing company. She was also facilitating and supporting a kill story about Jonesworks to competitively undermine her employer's reputation and business standing, and stealing Jonesworks' clients, including Wayfair and Baldoni. Her and her co-conspirator Nathan's motivations for these actions were plain: make really good money at the expense of Jonesworks. When Jonesworks finally learned of her theft of company documents and tried to stop her misconduct, Abel proudly announced that she was able to circumvent Jonesworks' protections and get everything I needed so Jones could suck it. She's really mad about the suck it thing. All the while, Abel was coordinating the I'm sorry, this just sounds like exactly something I would say. Abel was coordinating the misconduct for which she seeks indemnification, an unsanctioned smear campaign for the very clients, Wayfair and Baldoni, that she was in the process of stealing from Jonesworks in express defiance of instructions from her superiors at Jonesworks. This is beyond the pale of irony, and no reasonable fact finder could ever conclude that Abel was stealing from and defying Jonesworks for Jonesworks' benefit. Okay. A common law indemnification claim cannot succeed in such circumstances where the employee was pursuing her own goals rather than the company's. A kill story. So now Abel is an assassin. Okay. All right. So to here, Jonesworks not only had nothing to gain from Abel's actions, it was and continues to be actively harmed by its association with Abel and her smear campaign, despite having no knowledge of or involvement in that campaign, and even despite Jones herself actively rejecting such a campaign being sidelined as a result. That is not why you were sidelined, you psycho. By furthering her own interests at the expense of her employer, Abel was acting outside the scope of her employment and is not entitled to indemnification. 2. Jonesworks could not have foreseen that its trusted senior employee would betray it. Is Jonesworks a 14-year-old girl? Because I had the same kind of sentiments written, and I always pull this out because these things, some of these things, remind me of the things I wrote in my middle school diary. Okay. Even if her actions were not motivated by self-interest, Jonesworks would only be liable for, and Abel would only be entitled to indemnification if her tortious conduct were generally foreseeable and a natural incident of the employment. Here, Abel's intentional disregard of Jonesworks' instructions rendered her conduct unforeseeable and a significant departure from her normal duties, and thus beyond the scope of her employment. Okay, we have some bullet points here. 1, Abel recommended Wayfair hire Nathan, even though Jonesworks instructed otherwise. 2, when they attempted to, and this they're talking about Jones here, insert herself into the mix of Abel's work, Abel objected, but so did the client. The client didn't want you. At Abel's prompting, Wayfair instructed Jones to cease all activities on behalf of Wayfair and Baldoni. It kind of seems like that was their decision to sideline you, but okay. Abel harshly criticized Jones for refusing to be sidelined, as she should. Even Abel admitted that she was prepared to engage in over-the-top steps for Wayfair and Baldoni, steps that were, without question, outside of the instructions and desire of Jonesworks. That's yet to be seen, in my opinion. Frozen out from the Wayfair account and barred from participating, Jonesworks could not have possibly foreseen that Abel was executing the opposite agenda to the one endorsed by Jonesworks. Okay. I'm skipping through some of this here. Even though the actions for which Lively has sued Abel are arguably in service of public relations, the manner in which Abel carried them out was an abject departure from her and Jonesworks' years of business practices. Moreover, unlike the Bracero corrections officer, which is one of the cases up here, Abel has alleged no facts related to her 4 years of prior work for Jonesworks that should have caused the company to foresee that she would go rogue and engage in an expressly disapproved smear campaign. Abel's express disregard for Jones' instructions not to recommend that Wayfair hire Nathan crystallizes Abel's departure from the scope of her employment. She did the opposite of what her employer instructed her to do and expected her to do so. 3, Abel's misconduct far exceeds a mere error in judgment. Finally, Abel cannot plead innocence or mistake. Although an employee's action that is a mere error of judgment may still render an unjustifiable action within the scope of employment, no such refuge applies here, where Abel's actions were not a fleeting mistake, but a systematic long-term campaign against Jonesworks, motivated by a personal grudge and in furtherance of her scheme to poach Jonesworks clients and harm Jonesworks. See Dykes versus McRoberts. Sounds like my kind of party. All right. We're going to skim over that one. Here, Abel did not make a mere one-time error in judgment. Rather, she embarked upon a smear campaign against Lively while simultaneously perpetrating her scheme against Jonesworks. Each day that Abel chose to perpetuate these interconnected schemes, she confirmed that her actions were the result of a deliberate, calculated plan and not any mistake or temporary lapse. Abel's blatant disregard and mockery of Jones' instructions not to work with Nathan epitomizes the nefarious, not mistaken nature of Abel's actions. Moreover, Abel's own admissions confirm that she did harbor a personal grudge against her employer, crowing that Jones could suck it on her way out the door and conspiring with Nathan on a kill story against Jones. Again, this has not at all been proven, but okay. Abel cannot now seek to make Jonesworks liable for the very grudge that has already inflicted so much harm on the company. Abel's underhanded smear campaign and her associated plan to pillage and tear down Jonesworks on her way out place her actions squarely outside any reasonable scope of possible indemnification, and her claim for indemnification should be firmly and soundly dismissed. Conclusion: for the foregoing reasons, the court should dismiss Abel's third-party complaint. All right, ladies and gents, that's all I got for you this morning. Like I said, that video where you guys sent in the voice clips, I don't want it to be an afterthought to a new filing, so I'm going to post it tonight, or I'll post it tomorrow morning, depending on what happens tonight. I just want to make sure that the people who contributed their stories for that are getting kind of the attention it deserves, or I feel like it's being handled the way I feel it deserves. You know what I mean? I don't want it to be like an afterthought. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you soon. I have a work meeting at 9:15. It's 9:15. I gotta go.